Venice was where we went on our honeymoon, and that became the beginning of our interest in Venice. I had never been to Italy before, and Frank had been, but not to Venice. And so we were only there for a few days, and we loved it. And it was November.
When I was a newspaper reporter, our honeymoon in 1984 had to take place after the election, which meant after the first Tuesday in November. So it was simply luck, a fortuitous circumstance that we wound up in Venice in the winter, when it is absolutely gorgeous, romantic, foggy, ethereal, wonderful to look at. It is arguably the only city in the world that was built for beauty and not for defense, and therefore you have so many different kinds of architecture juxtaposed and living cheek by jowl, mortise to tenon, that it seems as if it shouldn't work, and yet it works wonderfully well. And to a photographer, that kind of visual stimulus is remarkable. It is impossible not to photograph, and that's why we're doing this project.
Frank's agent, when he had done 2 books of remote, obscure places, one on the eastern shore of Maryland and Virginia, and one in Maine, at the very easternmost point in the United States, our agent said, next time pick a place that has a wider appeal. And no place in the world has a wider appeal than Venice, except maybe Paris.
Venice is easily one of the most sophisticated places in the world. It had once been the nexus, the connecting point of trade between the eastern and western worlds. And when you go to a place like that is so rich in history, that is so rich in culture, that you do suddenly say to yourself, you know, there is a reason why people refer to it as the old world and us as the new world. I should add that a lot of the things that we photograph are things that require an awful lot of advanced planning and permissions. We have to, for example, we had to get permission to photograph the restoration work being done in Scuola San Rocco, which was not open to the public, and there we were climbing up scaffolding and making photographs that the average person could never do. And for a long time we wanted to make photographs of either a rabbi teaching the Torah to some young children or teaching Hebrew to students. And after literally a couple of years of emails and making inquiries and this kind of thing, we finally ran into a young man who said, you have to talk to Rabbi Richetti. And I said, well, where's Rabbi Richetti? And he said, well, there he goes now. And so I ran across the ghetto and got to the rabbi just as he was closing his door. I knock on his door and I say to him in Italian, sono fotografo americano, and went on to say I would love to make photographs of him in the ghetto. And he replies to me in perfect English, what a wonderful idea. We were walking down a street and Judy looked into this building and saw these 2 older folks dancing together. She looked at them and was transfixed. She could not move, and I said, come on, we're going to miss the Vaporetto. We're supposed to be at Piazza San Marco. And she said, no. And she walked in. And she smiled at these people who were just dancing by themselves. And she smiled, they smiled at her, and I said, oh geez. So I walked in, and there was a whole bunch of other old people. And right away I said, we have to shoot this. We walked in, announced that we were Americans, we were photographers, and immediately, oh my God, we were the youngest people in the room, pouring wine for us. We were there for a good hour and a half. We wound up dancing with everybody. We got marvelous pictures.
We chose to do black and white, which is unusual for Venice, at least currently. It certainly isn't historically. But we were hoping to do something that we haven't seen much of, which is work with the people who live and work there and show what it's like for them.
One of our first exposures, of course, was during Carnival, during the pre-Lenten festival. And there everyone walks around Venice in masks. It is like living and breathing an opera set. But I have to tell you, you talk to Venetians, you talk to the friends that we have made over there, and they say, that's not the real Venice. One of the things about taking pictures of people in masks, especially with Judy and me who are documentarians, is that you see the people's faces. And faces to us are the things that are perhaps most important in all of the photography that we do, both commercially, professionally, and artistically. Every time I see children, I take a look and see, and I know that Judy is going to nail it better than I can, because really she is the best photographer of children that I've ever worked with, and she has made remarkable pictures of children and dogs, as a matter of fact. But
we have a separate book of children
yeah,
and
that's
dogs,
right. It could be, yes, yes.
which will probably never be published.
Serenissima, Children and Dogs of Venice. There actually are two aspects to this entire project. One of them is what we like to call the atmospherics of Venice, the beauty of Venice itself. And of course, when you're working in a city where there are such beautiful buildings and architecture, you want to capture that. And there, we'll sometimes use techniques that we use in our commercial work. We're using multiple lighting, using long exposures while on a tripod, trying to give the best look that we can to some of the most beautiful buildings and architecture in the world. Most of our work is done street photography, available light, being unobtrusive, making pictures of people going about their daily lives in this incredibly beautiful setting. There is something about Venice, to an ex-New Yorker like myself, to see this stunningly beautiful place that is also quiet, human scale. You can walk around at 3 o'clock in the morning. The only thing you hear is the gurgling of water, the lapping of water in the Grand Canal. There is something magical and serene about that. It's not for nothing that Venice once was called the most serene republic, La Serenissima.